Love hormones explained: dopamine, oxytocin, and desire speech. Love doesn't begin with fate, soulmates, or magic. It begins in the brain. Every spark you've ever felt, every obsession you couldn't explain, every moment of deep attachment, it all has a chemical story behind it. But knowing the science doesn't make love less romantic. It makes it more honest. Most adults grow up thinking love is something that happens to them. In reality, love is something your brain creates, your body responds to, and your experiences shape. Dopamine makes you crave. Oxytocin makes you bond. Desire decides whether you lean in or pull away. Understanding these hormones changes how you see attraction, relationships, and even heartbreak. It explains why early passion feels addictive, why comfort can feel safer than exciting, and why desire doesn't always follow logic. This is not sex education from textbooks. This is real-life psychology, the kind that explains why you fall, why you attach, and why sometimes you let go. Let's break down the chemistry behind love, connection, and desire, honestly, clearly, and without myths. 5 key points of the speech. 1. Dopamine creates the chase. Dopamine is the excitement hormone. It's responsible for attraction, curiosity, obsession, and that rush you feel at the beginning of something new. It doesn't create love. It creates wanting. 2. Oxytocin builds emotional bonds. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It's released through touch, trust, vulnerability, and emotional safety. This is what turns attraction into attachment. 3. Desire is not the same as love. Desire is driven by novelty, mystery, and emotional stimulation. Love is driven by safety and connection. They overlap, but they don't always move together. 4. Hormones react to emotional environment. Stress, insecurity, emotional neglect, and unresolved conflict directly affect dopamine and oxytocin levels. Love chemistry is sensitive to how safe and seen you feel. 5. Long-term love requires conscious effort. Early chemistry fades naturally. Sustainable desire and connection require awareness, communication, and emotional presence, not just hormones doing the work. Dopamine creates the chase. Dopamine is the chemical behind excitement, curiosity, and motivation. It doesn't create love itself. It creates the desire to pursue. When you feel drawn to someone and can't stop thinking about them, when small interactions feel thrilling and anticipation feels electric, dopamine is at work. This hormone is released when the brain predicts reward, not when the reward is guaranteed, but when it's uncertain. That's why new attraction feels intense. You don't fully know the person yet. Every message, glance, or moment of attention carries possibility. Dopamine thrives on novelty and mystery. This is also why the beginning of relationships often feels addictive. Dopamine activates the same reward pathways as gambling or sugar. The brain says, this could feel amazing, chase it. And the more unpredictable the reward, the stronger the chase becomes. Dopamine doesn't care about compatibility or long-term health. It cares about stimulation. Someone emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or unpredictable can trigger higher dopamine responses than someone stable and available. The uncertainty keeps the brain engaged. This explains why people sometimes confuse anxiety with attraction. Elevated heart rate, restlessness, and obsessive thinking can feel like passion, but they're often signs of dopamine-driven anticipation mixed with stress. The body feels activated, not necessarily safe. Over time, dopamine naturally decreases. This is not a failure of the relationship. It's biology. Once the brain learns the pattern and the reward becomes predictable, dopamine release slows. The chase ends, and many people interpret this as losing love, when in reality, they're leaving the dopamine phase and entering a different stage of connection. Problems arise when people believe love must always feel like the chase. They start seeking novelty, emotional highs, or new partners to recreate dopamine spikes. This is how people get stuck in cycles of short-lived intensity. Dopamine is also deeply connected to self-worth. When attention from someone feels validating, dopamine reinforces the pursuit. If someone struggles with insecurity, the chase can feel like proof of value. This makes them more vulnerable to unhealthy attraction patterns. Understanding dopamine helps you stop romanticizing chaos. It teaches you that excitement alone isn't intimacy. The chase feels good, but it's not the foundation of lasting connection. Real love doesn't eliminate dopamine. It integrates it with safety, trust, and emotional depth. When dopamine is balanced with other bonding hormones, attraction becomes sustainable instead of exhausting. This is the lesson most people never learn. The chase feels intoxicating, but knowing why helps you choose better, not just feel more. Oxytocin builds emotional bonds. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone, but that description barely captures its depth. Oxytocin is not about excitement or chasing. It's about connection, trust, and emotional safety. Where dopamine makes you lean forward, oxytocin makes you stay. This hormone is released through meaningful touch, eye contact, vulnerability, and shared emotional experiences, holding hands, hugging, deep conversations, feeling understood. All of these trigger oxytocin. Over time, this chemical creates a sense of closeness that feels calm, warm, and grounding. Oxytocin is what transforms attraction into attachment. Without it, relationships may feel thrilling but unstable. With it, people feel bonded, secure, and emotionally anchored. This is why intimacy deepens not through intensity alone, but through consistency and care. One of oxytocin's most powerful effects is its ability to reduce fear. It lowers stress responses and helps the nervous system relax. When oxytocin is present, people feel safer expressing themselves. They open up emotionally. Trust becomes possible. This explains why emotional safety is essential for intimacy. If someone feels judged, pressured, or dismissed, oxytocin release is disrupted. The body moves into protection instead of connection. Desire may exist, but bonding struggles to form. Oxytocin also plays a major role in long-term relationships. As dopamine naturally decreases over time, oxytocin becomes the dominant hormone sustaining connection. It's the reason long-term partners often describe love as peaceful rather than intoxicating. However, oxytocin has a misunderstood side. It bonds people to experiences, not just people. This means bonding can occur even in unhealthy dynamics. If intense emotional moments, vulnerability, or physical closeness happen within instability, oxytocin can strengthen attachment to someone who may not be good for you. This is why leaving emotionally intense relationships can feel so difficult. The bond isn't just emotional, it's chemical. The body has learned safety and proximity even if the mind recognizes harm. Oxytocin also deepens empathy. When released, people become more attuned to their partner's emotions. This fosters compassion and mutual care. But it also requires boundaries because overbonding without balance can lead to emotional dependence. Healthy oxytocin bonding is built slowly. It grows through reliability, emotional presence, and respectful intimacy. It cannot be rushed or forced. This is what adult sex education often fails to teach. Love isn't sustained by excitement alone. It's sustained by safety. When oxytocin is nurtured intentionally, relationships feel less dramatic but more real, grounded in trust, closeness, and emotional connection that lasts. Desire is not the same as love. One of the most confusing truths about relationships is that desire and love are not the same experience, even though they often occur together. Many adults grow up believing that if desire fades, love must be gone. But psychologically and biologically, these two operate on different systems. Desire is driven by stimulation. It feeds on novelty, curiosity, mystery, and emotional charge. Love, on the other hand, is driven by attachment, safety, and emotional bonding. Desire asks, do I want you? Love asks, do I feel connected and secure with you? This distinction explains why people can deeply love someone yet feel disconnected sexually, or feel intense desire for someone they barely know. Desire doesn't require emotional depth. Love does. Desire is closely tied to dopamine. It thrives when there is uncertainty or emotional distance. When something feels predictable, desire can soften. Love, however, thrives on predictability. Trust, reliability, and emotional presence strengthen attachment. This creates a tension many couples don't understand. As relationships grow safer, desire can change shape. It doesn't disappear, but it may no longer feel urgent or obsessive. Without understanding this shift, people may assume something is wrong. Another misunderstanding is believing desire should be constant. In reality, desire fluctuates based on stress, emotional health, self-image, and relational dynamics. Love can remain steady even when desire ebbs and flows. Desire is also deeply connected to how someone feels about themselves. When people feel confident, desired, and emotionally alive, desire flows more easily. When they feel depleted, insecure, or unseen, desire withdraws, not as punishment, but as self-protection. This is why pressure kills desire. When someone feels obligated to want, their body resists. Desire cannot be demanded or negotiated. It emerges when safety and stimulation coexist. Love can survive without constant desire, but relationships suffer when desire is ignored entirely. The goal isn't to choose, knee over the other. It's to understand how they interact. Long-term intimacy requires learning how to create conditions for desire, not chase feelings. Emotional presence, autonomy, curiosity, and space all play roles in keeping desire alive alongside love. Sex education rarely teaches this nuance. Instead, people are taught to expect passion to remain unchanged forever. When reality doesn't match the myth, shame and confusion appear. Understanding that desire and love are different frees people from unnecessary panic. It allows them to stop personalizing change and start responding intentionally. This is the adult truth most people never hear. Love stays through safety. Desire returns through awareness. When people understand the difference, relationships become less dramatic and far more honest. Hormones react to the emotional environment. Love hormones don't exist in isolation. Dopamine, oxytocin, and desire don't operate on a fixed schedule or respond only to physical attraction. They react continuously to the emotional environment you live in. How safe, valued, stressed, or unseen you feel directly shapes your chemistry. When the emotional environment feels secure, the body relaxes. Stress hormones decrease and bonding hormones are allowed to flow. When the environment feels tense, unpredictable, or emotionally unsafe, the body shifts into survival mode. Desire doesn't disappear out of spite. It shuts down out of protection. This is why unresolved conflict matters more than people think. You can't argue all day, disconnect emotionally, and expect desire to magically appear at night. The nervous system remembers everything. Emotional friction lingers in the body long after words end. Stress is one of the biggest hormone disruptors. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which suppresses dopamine and oxytocin. When someone is overwhelmed by work, finances, insecurity, or emotional pressure, the brain prioritizes survival over pleasure. Intimacy becomes harder not because love is gone, but because the body is overloaded. Emotional neglect has a similar effect. Feeling unseen, unheard, or taken for granted reduces oxytocin release. The body stops associating closeness with safety and starts associating it with effort or disappointment. Over time, intimacy feels draining instead of nourishing. On the flip side, emotional attunement strengthens chemistry. Being listened to, validated, and emotionally understood signals safety to the nervous system. Oxytocin increases. Trust deepens. Desire becomes more accessible. This is why small moments matter. A genuine check-in, a calm conversation, eye contact, presence. These moments create a hormonal environment where connection can grow. Chemistry isn't just created in bedrooms. It's built in daily emotional exchanges. Inconsistent behavior is especially disruptive to hormone regulation. When affection is unpredictable, dopamine may spike initially, but long-term bonding suffers. The nervous system stays alert instead of relaxed. Desire becomes mixed with anxiety. Many people misinterpret this as losing attraction, when in reality, their body is responding logically to emotional instability. Chemistry is not irrational, it's responsive. Another overlooked factor is self-directed emotional environment. How someone treats themselves matters too. Shame, self-criticism, and emotional suppression reduce the body's capacity for pleasure and connection. Self-compassion and emotional awareness improve it. Adult sex education rarely explains that intimacy is less about doing and more about feeling safe over time. People try to fix desire with techniques instead of addressing emotional conditions. The truth is simple but powerful. Your hormones listen to your emotional world. When the environment supports safety, respect, and presence, love chemistry doesn't need to be forced. It responds naturally. Conscious love requires choice, not just chemistry. Chemistry can start a relationship, but it cannot sustain one. Long-term love is not something that simply happens. It is something that is chosen, regulated, and renewed over time. This is the part of love most people are never taught. Hormones create impulses. Conscious love creates direction. Dopamine fades. Oxytocin fluctuates. Desire responds to environment. Without awareness, people assume the relationship is failing when the chemistry shifts. In reality, what's ending is automatic attraction, not connection itself. What's required next is intention. Conscious love begins with emotional regulation. When people can manage stress, communicate without defensiveness, and stay present during discomfort, intimacy deepens. When emotions are unmanaged, even strong chemistry collapses under pressure. Many adults expect love to feel effortless forever, but effort doesn't mean forcing feelings. It means maintaining the conditions where connection can grow. This includes emotional honesty, consistent communication, and respect for boundaries. Choice shows up in small moments, choosing to listen instead of react, choosing curiosity instead of assumptions, choosing presence instead of distraction. These choices shape emotional safety, which directly affects bonding hormones. Conscious love also means accepting change. People evolve, desire changes shape, needs shift. Love that survives doesn't resist change, it adapts to it. This flexibility keeps relationships alive. Another critical aspect is responsibility. Adults must take responsibility for their emotional state instead of outsourcing it to their partner. Expecting someone else to regulate your emotions creates pressure and dependency. Shared intimacy thrives when two regulated individuals meet, not when one person carries the emotional weight. Conscious love requires tolerating discomfort. Growth moments are rarely comfortable. Honest conversations, boundary setting, and vulnerability can feel risky, but avoiding discomfort leads to emotional distance. Facing it builds trust. This is where many relationships fail, not due to lack of love, but lack of emotional ski. LLS. Without tools for conflict, repair, and reconnection, people drift apart while still caring deeply. Sex education almost never addresses this. It focuses on attraction and technique, but ignores emotional maturity. Yet emotional maturity is what keeps desire and connection alive long after novelty fades. Conscious love doesn't kill romance, it deepens it. When people feel emotionally safe, respected, and chosen daily, intimacy becomes richer, not weaker. The adult truth is this: chemistry opens the door, choice keeps it open. When love is approached consciously, it becomes less dramatic but far more powerful, grounded in trust, emotional intelligence, and connection that lasts beyond hormones. Give me conclusion of speech into 5 long paragraph. Also thank you and goodbye notes and channel. Subscribe. Attractive lines, conclusion, love hormones, desire, and conscious connection. Paragraph 1. Understanding love hormones doesn't make romance less magical. It makes it more honest. When we realize that attraction, attachment, and desire are influenced by dopamine, oxytocin, and our emotional environment, we stop blaming ourselves or our partners for natural changes. Love becomes something we understand, not something we fear losing. Paragraph 2. Dopamine explains the thrill of the beginning, but it was never meant to last forever. Oxytocin teaches us why safety, trust, and emotional closeness matter more over time. Desire shows us that attraction isn't broken when it shifts. It's responding intelligently to stress, connection, and self-awareness. These changes aren't failures, they're transitions. Paragraph 3. When adults stop confusing intensity with intimacy, relationships become healthier. Love doesn't need constant excitement to survive. It needs emotional presence, communication, and respect. When we create an environment where the nervous system feels safe, chemistry responds naturally. Paragraph 4. Conscious love is where real intimacy lives. It's built through choice, not just chemistry, through listening, regulating emotions, and showing up consistently even when it's uncomfortable. This kind of love doesn't fade quickly. It deepens slowly. Paragraph 5. This is the love education many of us never received. One that replaces myths with awareness and performance with presence. When we understand how love hormones work, we stop chasing illusions and start building connections that are emotionally sustainable and deeply fulfilling. Thank you and goodbye note. Thank you for taking the time to watch and reflect. If this conversation helped you understand love, desire, or connection more clearly, then it has already done its job. Take this awareness with you into your relationships with curiosity, honesty, and compassion. Thank you for being here, and goodbye. If you want real relationship psychology, not surface advice, subscribe now. On The Dating Psychology, we decode attraction, desire, and intimacy honestly. Subscribe and join us, see immunity that chooses awareness over confusion. Turn on notifications so you don't miss conversations that actually change how you love. If this video resonated, this channel is for you. See you in the next video.